In the shadow-drenched streets of Seoul, where neon lights hide deadly secrets, a Nigerian waitress crosses paths with the city's most feared mafia boss. One question changes everything. Who did this to you? When Hyun notices the bruises on Dorcas's skin, he unleashes a war he never planned to fight. But violence has consequences, and protection comes with a price written in blood. Can a man built by brutality learn mercy from the woman who sees beyond his monster? Can she survive loving someone the world wants dead? This is a story of scars that heal and wounds that destroy, of two souls fighting for freedom in a city that devours the weak. If you're ready for a tale that will grip your heart and refuse to let go, stay with us until the very end. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next. The glass shattered against the wall behind the bar, and every head in Mina's diner turned toward the sound. Dorcas didn't flinch. She'd learned not to. In the 6 months she'd worked the night shift, she'd seen worse than drunk salarymen throwing tantrums. She grabbed the broom with steady hands, her dark skin glistening under the fluorescent lights, and moved toward the mess. "Leave it," came a voice that cut through the smoke and chatter like a blade through silk. Hyun sat in his usual corner booth, the one with the clear view of both exits. His black suit was immaculate despite the late hour, his rings catching light as he lifted his glass of whiskey. The diner fell into that particular kind of silence that only came when predators entered the room. Even the drunk businessman who'd thrown the glass suddenly found interest in his shoes. Dorcas swept anyway. Men like Hyun, men who commanded fear with their presence alone, didn't get to tell her what to do. Not anymore. She'd left Nigeria to escape being told what she could and couldn't do, even if the freedom she'd found in Seoul came wrapped in debt and bruises she pretended not to feel. "You're stubborn," Hyun observed as she approached his table with a fresh pot of coffee. His Korean was crisp, educated, nothing like the rough street slang most of his men used. "You're a regular," Dorcas replied, pouring without being asked. "Black, no sugar. You remember." Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, maybe, or the ghost of it. Men like him probably weren't used to being remembered for anything other than fear. "It's my job." She turned to leave, but his hand shot out, catching her wrist. Not roughly, but with enough firmness to stop her mid-step. The entire diner seemed to hold its breath. Hyun's men, scattered at various tables, tensed. One reached inside his jacket. But Hyun wasn't looking at them. He was staring at the dark purple bruise encircling Dorcas's wrist like a grotesque bracelet, at the yellowing marks that crawled up her forearm where her sleeve had ridden up. His voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. "Who did this to you?" Dorcas felt her heartbeat in her throat. She'd hidden the marks carefully, long sleeves even in summer's heat, makeup when the bruises colored her face, excuses when questions came too close. But this man with eyes like frozen rivers saw everything and, worse, seemed to care. "Nobody," she lied, trying to pull away. "I fell." Hyun's grip didn't tighten, but it didn't release either. He tilted his head, studying her face with the intensity of someone reading a complex equation. "I've heard every lie humans can tell. I've told most of them myself. Try again." "It's not your business." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. It wasn't. His thumb brushed over the bruise, so gently she almost gasped at the contrast between his reputation and his touch. "But I'm making it mine." "Who?" The diner door chimed, and Mr. Park walked in, her manager, all fake smiles and designer knockoffs. His eyes found her immediately, narrowed at the sight of Hyun holding her wrist, and his expression shifted into something oily and placating. "Mr. Hyun," Park said in English, bowing deeply. "I hope this clumsy girl isn't bothering you. Dorcas, get back to work. Now." Dorcas felt Hyun's hand tighten microscopically on her wrist. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "We were having a conversation," Hyun said, still in Korean, still not looking at Park. "About how she got these bruises." Park's laugh was nervous, high-pitched. "She's always falling, that one. Clumsy foreign girls, you know how it is. Not like our Korean women." Finally, Hyun looked at him. It was the kind of look that made grown men reconsider their life choices. "Interesting. Because these bruises look exactly like finger marks. And unless I'm mistaken, you're left-handed. Just like whoever grabbed her." The silence that followed could have suffocated the city. Park's smile cracked. "Mr. Hyun, surely you're not interested in What I'm interested in, Hyun interrupted, releasing Dorcas's wrist, but not breaking eye contact with Park, is understanding why someone would put hands on what's mine. Dorcas's breath caught. She wasn't his, wasn't anyone's, but the claim hung in the air like a declaration of war. Park's face went through several colors before settling on pale. I didn't know, I would never, Mr. Hyun, please, there's been a misunderstanding. There has. Hyun stood, and despite Park being taller, he seemed to shrink. You misunderstood that you could touch her without consequences. Consider yourself corrected. He walked past Park, who practically flattened himself against the wall, and stopped at Dorcas's side. Your shift ends when? 5 a.m., she whispered, not sure why she was answering. My driver will wait outside. Go with him when you're done. I don't need. I know you don't. His voice softened, just a fraction. But you're going to accept anyway, because Park is connected to people who won't appreciate what happened here tonight, and I'd rather not scrape you off some back alley because you were too proud to accept help. Understood. Dorcas wanted to argue, wanted to tell him she'd been taking care of herself long before he noticed her existence. But the bruises on her wrist throbbed, and Park's face had gone from pale to calculating, and she realized with sudden clarity that Hyun was right. Whatever protection invisibility had offered her, it had shattered the moment Seoul's most dangerous man decided to care. Understood, she said. Hyun nodded once and left, his men flowing out behind him like shadows. The diner slowly returned to its normal chaos, but Park stared at her with barely concealed fury. You stupid girl, he hissed in English once Hyun was gone. Do you know what you've done? Before she could answer, he grabbed her arm, the same spot Hyun had touched and squeezed. Hard. Dorcas spit back a gasp. You're fired, Park spat. And you still owe me 3 months' rent and the agency fees. I want it by Friday, or I'm calling immigration. Let's see how much your Mafia boyfriend cares when you're deported. He shoved her back and stormed toward his office. Dorcas stood in the middle of the diner, coffee pot still in hand, feeling her carefully constructed life crumbling. The other workers wouldn't meet her eyes. They knew the rules. Don't attract attention, don't make waves, don't trust anyone who promises protection. She'd broken all of them in the span of 5 minutes. At 5:03 a.m., she pushed through the diner's doors into Seoul's pre-dawn chill. A black Mercedes sat at the curb, engine purring. The driver, a young man with a scar running down his cheek, stepped out and opened the back door. Miss Dorcas, he said in heavily accented English. Mr. Hyun is waiting. She should have run. Should have gone back to her shared apartment, packed her things, and found a way to disappear into the city's margins. Instead, she got in the car. They drove through Seoul's awakening streets, past shuttered shops and early morning vendors, climbing into the hills where the city's wealthy kept their distance from the chaos below. The car stopped in front of a building that was all glass and steel, luxury apartments that cost more per month than she'd make in a year. Hyun waited in the lobby, changed into casual clothes, black jeans, and a simple white shirt that somehow made him look more dangerous than his suit had. Without the armor of formality, she could see the scars on his forearms. The way he moved like violence was always one breath away. You didn't have to come, he said. Your driver didn't give me much choice. A ghost of a smile. Minjun can be persuasive. Come. The elevator ride to the penthouse was silent. Dorcas watched the numbers climb, feeling like she was ascending into some alternate reality where mafia bosses rescued waitresses and everything made sense. The doors opened directly into his apartment, a sprawling space of minimalist furniture and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's glittering expanse. You're safe here, Hyun said, moving to the kitchen and pouring 2 glasses of water. Park works for the Namsan gang. They've been trying to move into my territory for months, using foreign workers as cheap labor for their underground casinos and worse. When I embarrassed Park in front of witnesses, I made his bosses look weak. Dorcas accepted the water with shaking hands. So I'm bait now? Something they'll use to get to you. Probably. His honesty was brutal and oddly refreshing. Which is why you're staying here until I deal with this. I'm not a dog you can just bring home. No, Hyun agreed, studying her over the rim of his glass. You're much more stubborn than any dog I've owned. But unless you have somewhere safer to go, somewhere Park and his friends won't find you, this is where you stay. Not as my possession. As my guest. And if I refuse? He shrugged. Then I'll have Minjun follow you everywhere, which will be inconvenient for both of you, and you'll eventually end up here anyway after someone tries to grab you off the street. We can skip the drama if you'd like." Dorcas sank onto the leather couch, exhaustion hitting her like a wave. She'd worked a double shift, been fired, and apparently declared war on a rival gang without meaning to. Her life had become a Korean crime drama, except the protagonist was supposed to be clever and resourceful, not just tired and scared. "Why do you care?" she asked finally. "You've seen me serve coffee for months. Why now? Why me?" Hyun was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "My mother had bruises like yours. For years, I watched my father put them there, watched her make excuses, watched her fade into something less than human. I was too young to stop it then. Too weak." He turned to face her fully, and something raw flickered across his features. "I'm not weak anymore. And I'm tired of watching women get hurt by men who think power means they can take whatever they want." The admission hung between them, vulnerable and unexpected. Dorcas saw past the mafia boss to the boy who'd learned that love could wear bruises, that protection sometimes looked like violence. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "Don't be. Just let me handle this. Please." That please did more to convince her than any threat or command could have. She nodded, and something in Hyun's shoulders relaxed. "There's a guest room down the hall. Get some sleep. We'll figure out the rest later." But Dorcas didn't sleep. She lay in the too-soft bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the city wake up below. She thought about her mother back in Lagos, who'd sold jewelry to help pay for her plane ticket. About her dreams of university and a degree in international relations. About how quickly those dreams had dissolved into debt and desperation, into men like Park who saw foreign girls as commodities to be used and discarded. She thought about Hyun's hands, scarred and gentle, and wondered if someone built from violence could ever be anything else. 3 days passed in strange domesticity. Hyun left early and returned late, always with blood on his knuckles that he washed off before speaking to her. His men came and went, speaking in rapid Korean she couldn't fully follow, but she caught names: Park, Namsan, Retaliation. On the 4th night, Hyun came home with a split lip and blood soaking through his shirt. "It's not mine," he said before she could ask, heading toward his bathroom. "Don't worry." But Dorcas followed, watching as he peeled off the ruined shirt to reveal a tapestry of scars across his back and chest, bullet wounds, knife marks, the history of his life written in damaged flesh. "Sit," she commanded, grabbing a first aid kit from under the sink. "I said it's not." "Sit." He sat. She cleaned the cuts on his face, the scrapes on his knuckles, working with the careful precision she'd learned helping at her church's medical outreach programs back home. Hyun watched her the entire time, his gaze heavy and searching. "You should hate me," he said quietly. "I killed 3 men tonight because they were asking questions about you. I didn't hesitate. Didn't feel guilt. Just pulled the trigger and moved on." Dorcas's hands stilled. "Should that impress me? That you can kill without feeling?" "No." He caught her wrist, gently, always gently with her. "But it should scare you. I'm not a good man, Dorcas. I'm what this city made me. My brother was supposed to take over the syndicate. He was smart, diplomatic, could have made us legitimate. But they killed him when I was 23, and I had to step up or watch everything he built crumble. So I became the monster they needed. The one who doesn't flinch, doesn't feel, doesn't stop." "And now?" she asked, meeting his eyes. "Now I'm tired." The admission seemed to cost him. "I'm 36 years old, and I've spent half my life drowning in blood. I don't remember what it feels like to be clean." Dorcas placed her hand over his, over the scars and the violence. "Then get out. Walk away." Hyun laughed, bitter and sharp. "There's no walking away from this life. The only exit is in a body bag." "That's not true. You have money resources. I have enemies who've been waiting years for me to show weakness. The moment I try to leave, they'll see their chance. And everyone I care about becomes a target." His thumb traced the fading bruises on her wrist. "Like you already are." The next morning, Dorcas woke to voices arguing in Korean. She crept to her bedroom door, cracking it open to see Hyun and an older man in an expensive suit facing off in the living room. "You're getting soft," the older man spat. "Over a girl? A foreign girl? Your father would be ashamed." "My father was a drunk who beat my mother to death," Hyun replied coldly. "I don't particularly care about his opinions. This isn't about your dead parents. It's about business. Park's gang is circling, and instead of crushing them like you should, you're playing house with some waitress. The men are starting to talk. Let them talk. Hyun. The older man's voice dropped. I've been your advisor since your brother died. I've watched you build this empire with my own hands. But if you're going to throw it all away for pussy, I need to know now so I can make other arrangements. The slap echoed through the apartment. Hyun's hand connected with the older man's face with enough force to spin his head. You will never speak about her like that again, Hyun said, voice deadly quiet. Am I understood, uncle? The older man touched his reddening cheek, something calculating shifting behind his eyes. Understood. After he left, Hyun stood at the window, shoulders tense. Dorcas emerged from her room. How much did you hear? He asked without turning. Enough to know I'm causing problems. You're not causing anything. This was always going to happen. Park's gang, my uncle's ambitions, the cracks in my organization, it was all there before you. You just gave it a face. Dorcas moved to stand beside him, looking out at Seoul's sprawl. Your uncle is right, though. You're risking everything for someone you barely know. Maybe. Hyun glanced at her. Or maybe I'm finally fighting for something that matters instead of just fighting. That afternoon, while Hyun was in meetings, Dorcas explored the penthouse. In his study, she found photographs, Hyun with an older boy who had the same sharp features, both of them smiling in a way that seemed impossible now. His brother, she realized. The one who was supposed to save them from this life. She found books too. Philosophy, poetry, novels in Korean and English. A guitar gathering dust in the corner. Evidence of a person who'd existed before the violence consumed him. He taught me to play, Hyun said from the doorway, making her jump. She hadn't heard him return. My brother. Said music would keep me human even if the business didn't. Do you still play? Not in 10 years. He picked up the guitar, ran his fingers over the strings. They were out of tune, producing discordant notes. I'm not sure I remember how. But his hands found the chords anyway, muscle memory overriding time. He played something melancholic and beautiful, and Dorcas saw for the first time the man he might have been in a different life. The one who went to university, fell in love without casualties, measured his worth in something other than fear. When he finished, silence filled the room like an apology. Teach me, Dorcas said. So he did. They spent the evening with the guitar between them, Hyun's scarred hands guiding hers, showing her where to press, how to strum. Their knees touched. His breath warmed her neck as he leaned in to adjust her grip. And Dorcas realized with sudden, terrifying clarity that she was falling for a man who'd promised her the only way out of his life was death. But the fragile peace shattered that night. The explosion tore through one of Hyun's nightclubs at 11:47 p.m., killing 2 security guards and 7 customers. Dorcas watched it on the news, the flames reflected in the penthouse windows, while Hyun's phone rang continuously with updates. His face was stone as he listened, but his hands gripped the counter hard enough to whiten his knuckles. They found the device 20 feet from where you usually sit, his lieutenant reported. If you'd been there tonight. But I wasn't. Hyun's voice could have cut diamonds. Because I was here. Which means they wanted to send a message. He hung up and immediately made another call. Gather everyone. Every man, every weapon. I want Park's boss bleeding at my feet by sunrise. Hyun, wait, Dorcas started, but he was already moving, pulling on his jacket, checking the gun at his hip. Stay here. Don't leave. Minjun will guard the door. You can't just kill everyone. He spun on her, and for the first time, she saw the monster his enemies feared. They tried to kill me. They killed 7 people instead. Innocent people whose only crime was being near my business. So yes, I can kill everyone, and I will. This is who I am, Dorcas. This is what I do. And what happens after? You kill Park's boss, his gang retaliates, you retaliate back, and it never ends. You told me yourself, the only way out is death. Is that really what you want? It doesn't matter what I want. But his voice cracked on the words. This is the world I live in. I can't change the rules just because I met someone who makes me wish I could. He left before she could respond, and Dorcas was alone with Minjun standing guard and the television showing footage of body bags being carried from the burning club. She thought about the guitar in Hyun's study, about his brother who believed music could save him, about her mother's prayers and her own dreams of a life that mattered. About how sometimes the people who needed saving most were the ones who'd forgotten they could be saved. At 3 a.m., Hyun returned. His clothes were blood-soaked, his knuckles raw, his eyes empty. He walked past her without speaking, stripped off his clothes in the hallway, and stepped into the shower. Dorcas heard the water running for 30 minutes, then 40, then an hour. Finally, she knocked on the bathroom door. Hyun? No answer. She opened it slowly. He sat in the shower, knees drawn up, water cascading over him pink with diluted blood. He didn't look up when she entered, didn't react when she turned off the water and wrapped a towel around his shoulders. I killed 17 men tonight, he said flatly. Park's boss. His lieutenants. Anyone who stood between me and revenge. I burned their headquarters to the ground. My uncle called it magnificent. Said I was finally acting like a true leader again. Dorcas knelt beside him, not caring that the water soaked her clothes. And how do you feel? Nothing. He finally looked at her, and his eyes were dead. I feel nothing. I used to feel something, anger, satisfaction, at least the rush of survival. But tonight? Nothing. Just routine. Just the next thing on the list. Then stop. I can't. You can. She took his face in her hands, forcing him to look at her. You think you're too far gone, but you're not. You learned to play guitar again in one evening. You remember how to be gentle. You're not the monster you pretend to be, Hyun. You're just scared that if you stop fighting, you'll disappear. Maybe I should disappear. His voice was barely a whisper. Maybe the world would be better if I did. The world doesn't get to decide that. You do. Dorcas pressed her forehead to his. Choose differently. Choose life. Choose to walk away while you still can. Something broke in him then. He pulled her against him, burying his face in her shoulder, and shook with sobs he'd probably been holding back for years. Dorcas held him, this man who'd killed 17 people to protect her, who'd forgotten how to be human, but was trying to remember. In the following weeks, Hyun started making moves to leave the syndicate. Quiet moves, transferring assets, setting up his lieutenants for succession, making peace with rival gangs. His uncle watched with suspicious eyes, but said nothing. The organization was stable, profitable. If Hyun wanted to retire, he'd earned it. Dorcas enrolled in university, using money Hyun transferred anonymously. She moved into a small apartment near campus, safe and hers. Hyun visited when he could, and slowly, they built something that looked almost like a normal relationship. They cooked meals together, watched movies, made love without the weight of violence hanging over them. For 6 weeks, Dorcas allowed herself to believe in happy endings. Then his uncle made his move. It happened fast. Hyun's closest lieutenant, the one who was supposed to take over, was found dead, executed gang-style. 2 more of his loyal men disappeared. And a message was delivered to the penthouse. Weakness will not be tolerated. It's my uncle, Hyun said, pacing his apartment like a caged animal. He thinks I'm leaving the organization vulnerable. He's consolidating power before I can officially step down. So stop him. I can't. The moment I move against him, it becomes civil war. Half the syndicate is loyal to him. We'll tear ourselves apart fighting, and the other gangs will move in to pick up the pieces. Then leave anyway. Tonight. We'll disappear. He has your name, Dorcas. Hyun's voice was gentle and terrible. He knows where you go to school, where you work, what route you take home. If I run, he'll hurt you to draw me back. And he'll take his time doing it. The trap was perfect. Stay and fight a war he couldn't win, or run and condemn her to death. Dorcas saw the calculation happening behind his eyes, the same cold logic that had kept him alive in this world for so long. And she saw the exact moment he made his decision. No, she said firmly. Whatever you're thinking, no. It's the only way to keep you safe. By getting yourself killed? That's not safety, Hyun. That's just ending differently. He pulled her close, pressed his lips to her forehead. You taught me mercy. Taught me that I'm not the monster I thought I was. But I'm still what this city made me, and some sins can't be washed away. At least let me use what I am to protect what I love. Don't talk like this is goodbye. It's not goodbye. He smiled, sad and certain. It's thank you. For seeing past the blood to who I used to be. For believing I could be saved when I'd stopped believing it myself. That night, while Dorcas slept in his bed, Hyun left. The news came 2 days later. A massive gang war had erupted in Seoul's underground. Hyun had stormed his uncle's compound with 20 loyal men, fighting through dozens of guards to reach the inner sanctum. The battle raged for hours, spilling into the streets, drawing police, SWAT teams, and military intervention. When the smoke cleared, 43 men were dead, including Hyun. The official story was that he died in the crossfire, brought down by his own uncle's bullet before his lieutenant finished the old man. A clean end to a dirty war. The syndicate fractured, smaller gangs absorbed the pieces, and the entire organization Hyun's brother had built disappeared into history. Dorcas didn't believe it. She went to the compound, bribed her way past police tape, and searched the rubble. She found Hyun's ring, the one he always wore, tucked inside a hollow brick near the back entrance. The one he'd told her about during late-night conversations, the one that had belonged to his brother. A note was wrapped around it in his handwriting. "Now you're free. Don't let anyone ever hurt you again. Live enough for both of us." She cried then, standing in the ruins of his last stand, understanding finally what he'd done. He'd made it look like a war between factions, deflecting attention from her. He died so violently and so publicly that no one would bother chasing ghosts. His uncle was dead, the syndicate was scattered, and she was just a footnote in a story about gang violence, not worth pursuing, not worth remembering. He'd bought her freedom with his life. 6 months later, Dorcas sat in a university lecture hall, taking notes on international law and human rights. The bruises were long gone, replaced by the calluses of someone who'd learned to protect herself. She wore Hyun's ring on a chain around her neck, hidden under her clothes. If this story gripped your heart, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. What would you have done in Dorcas's place? Could Hyun have been saved, or was his ending the only way? Let's talk in the comments. And don't forget to like this video, it helps us bring you more stories that matter. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong, and remember, even in the darkest places, mercy can shine through.